Entrepreneurs are some of the most resilient, persistent, like tenacious humans that exist. When you think about it, like they're working on things before others even know that it's possible. What is also true is that that strong will can actually lead to an approach of trial and error when in actuality, modeling is best. In this episode, I look to destroy or at least debunk the myth of trial and error so that you can launch your business to new heights much, much faster. Let's grow. I used to believe that if I didn't work really hard to get it, then it wasn't mine or I wasn't deserving of it. And by that I mean, if I didn't struggle, if it wasn't hard, if it wasn't gruesome, so much so that I definitely have a tendency to make things harder than they have to be. Can you relate to that? Are you one of those people who tend to make it hard? When you look, once it's done, do you ever find yourself looking back and saying, man, that was not, I made that more difficult. It wasn't that hard. I made it harder than it had to be. Well, what's the thinking that's underneath that? What's the thinking that's behind making things harder than they have to be? I know for me, through some introspection and self-reflection, it turned out that I unintentionally or subjectively made things harder because I felt like the harder it was for me to attain, then the more I was deserving of it, the more I was worthy of it. And so this could actually lead to an affinity for trial and error, when in truth, trial and error a lot of times is a myth. I'm listening to a friend and mentor recently, and he says, you know, Courtland, I don't want to be the pioneer. And based on the success that he has in business, I was actually pretty shocked to hear him say this. But he went on to say, yeah, no. The pioneers died, they died, right? He was like, I don't want to be the first one out there. I don't want to be the pioneer. I would much rather see what has been tested. I would much rather find out what is proven and then go in and make what has been proven better than it's ever been. So rather than be the pioneer, his approach is to say, well, what's working or what has worked, and how can we take what has worked and make it better than it's ever been presented? That was a complete mind shift for me. A complete mind shift, because in my conditioning, my thinking and programming, I'm thinking, well, you know what, if I wasn't first to do it, or if I model someone else, isn't that cheating? And so as a result of that, I wanted to make things, super unique, never been said, never been done, never been expressed. But just as I'm saying that, you think about the number of hamburger places that are in, one city or town. The number of, if I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so if I were to go out and just count the number of places in this city where you can find a hamburger, clearly it's not necessary to be the unique one and only representation. In fact, who I am and who you are is in itself the uniqueness. The way you're going to do it, the way you're going to say it, the way you're going to present it, the way you're going to sell it, the way you're going to offer it is unique to you. So if you will ground like yourself, if you be confident in being your authentic self is of itself, right? Your authentic self is unique, never been duplicated, never been presented, never had representation in the world. So just that alone. So but I kind of went off on a tangent there for a second, but let me come back. All right. So I used to think that it had to be uniquely done, never been seen, never been heard, never presented this way. And that leads to slow progress, lots of frustration, and, unnecessary work. And so the idea then that we have to use trial and error in order to be successful, I have a different take. Rather than trial and error, how about you go towards modeling? Modeling is essentially you find what's working or find what has been done or find someone who has done what you're doing and then position yourself to learn from and perhaps advance what's been created. So one of the things that modeling provides over trial and error is efficiency and speed. Like picture this. You're stuck in this never-ending game of like whack-a-mole. Remember that old game, like whack-a-mole? All right, you're stuck in this never-ending game of whack-a-mole, and every time you put down one problem, another one arises. Every time you do that, just when you think you nailed one problem, another one pops up. That's trial and error for you. Okay, that's how trial and error goes. So sure, it's educational, but at what cost? Yeah, you're getting some experience, but what are you giving up by way of time? So rather than that, right, it's like trying to solve like a Rubik's Cube in the dark. Think about how difficult that would be for you to solve a Rubik's Cube, like while it's pitch black. Doesn't work, okay? So much rather than that, modeling is like having a cheat sheet with all of the moves already mapped out. You're not fumbling around, you're not, you're not, testing to see, you're actually executing a plan that's been tried and tested. So it's no more guessing games, it's just pure strategic action. Not guesses, not hoping that it turns out. It's actual principle and science that you are applying. So I maintain that you want to model versus just pure trial and error. And what that will do is it will save you time. Why? Because it's more efficient and it's also faster. Not only that, but let's take like cost effectiveness. So, let's like talk real money. Trial and error can be like, just this wallet draining nightmare. And you don't even know if it's going to work. You throw money at the problem, hoping it turns out. Well, I was going to say unless you have an infinite supply of resources, but there is no such thing as an infinite supply of resources. We can be infinitely supplied with resourcefulness. That's more of a skill. But nonetheless, right, when you're in the place of trial and error, you're oftentimes will find yourself throwing money at the problem, throwing money in hopes that it will work. Be that, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, a copywriter, a marketing person, a virtual assistant. You just start throwing money at it in hopes that it will work. When in reality, particularly as a startup or solo entrepreneur, right, you may not have the resources for that. So, in order for you to get, like the best bang for your buck, it's like, you are going to, how do I say it? What you're going to do is you're going to get the best bang for your buck because you're following a blueprint when you're modeling. Okay, trial and error is on you, but when you model, you're like following a blueprint that's already been laid out. And so those mistakes, the things that don't work, the errors have already been made and you didn't have to pay for them. You didn't have to pay for it. So it's much better for you then to model versus this adage of trial and error. You're just, hitting your head, beating your head against the wall. Like I'm persistent, I'm determined, I'm going to stick with it no matter what. And that is really just not good strategy for business. Now, let's face it, right? If you're going to be an entrepreneur, it is risky. There is no doubt about it. Like it's huge risks are involved. And a lot of people oftentimes choose comfort and safety over the risks that are inherent in building a business. So why add more risk with this scattershot type approach of trial and error, right? Trial and error is like trying to, you're going to like tame a lion with a feather. You imagine that, okay? How crazy, how insane you would look, okay? So rather than that, right, it might work, but you're more likely to get killed by the lion. So rather than use that approach, right? It's a big risk, yes, but modeling on the other hand is like having a lion tamer by your side. Okay, so you go out first. One approach is you're going to take your little feather and try to tame the lion. The other is you actually have a lion tamer right by your side right, who already knows what to do, who's been down this path, who's run this route. You got them right by your side, and so therefore you have the expertise and you have the tools to handle whatever comes your way. So by following models based on real world success, you can actually anticipate problems, and because you anticipate the problem, you're already equipped for or with a solution. So modeling over trial and error, it doesn't mean that there won't be risk, okay, because there will be some, right? It doesn't mean that there won't be cost, because there will be some. It doesn't mean that it won't still take time, because obviously it will. However, you don't have to make it harder than it needs to be. You don't have to be out looking to do something that has never been done, because you doing it means that it's not been done. Why? Because it's not been done by you. So however you do it or bring it to the world is unique in and of itself. And I maintain that that is actually enough. Okay. Now, there's also the learning curve. Okay. The learning curve that comes with trial and error versus the learning curve that comes with modeling. It's like trial and error. You feel like you're repeating the same grade over and over and over again, right? You keep not passing the advancement exam, right? Trial and error is like, you're doing everything you can. You're putting in all of this work, all of this effort to level up, only to find that you're still like running in place. So yeah, you're learning, but it's slow. You're learning, but it's painful. You're learning, but it's often like demoralizing, and it can kill your confidence. Because you're not seeing results faster, it can actually have you start to doubt and wonder if you even have what it takes to excel and achieve. And so as a result of that, your mental conditioning has to be in such a place that, because the results aren't in and you're not seeing what you desire to see in the time that you want to see it, questions start to arise. Whereas, that's from trial and error. You're by yourself, like you're controlling everything, unwilling to let everything go. You're going to fix it, create it, invent it all yourself. And there is space and room for that. I just don't believe that it's absolutely necessary. So modeling is, one of the things about modeling is it wouldn't be you, like you're not in the race alone. Okay. It's not just you in the race. You're not just in the race though, you're leading it. You adopt like the best practices from the get-go. From the jump, you're learning what works and what doesn't. So rather than like repeating the same grade over and over and over again in that vicious cycle, it's like being able to skip grades. It's like, you remember those, I wasn't one of them, but there were kids who could actually test out of certain grades, or they could test out of certain classes. I remember, in leading from high school to college, there were exams that you could take to show that you didn't need those fundamental courses at college. Now, I was able to get through some of those, okay? So when you're modeling, imagine it being like that for your life. Trial and error, you keep repeating, whereas when you're modeling, you actually get to skip some grades and you reach your destination a whole lot faster. Then lastly, I think it is very important to note that modeling is a much more of a competitive advantage than is trial and error. Trial and error, you're learning things all to yourself. When you model, it's already been demonstrated. And what it mainly does is it solidifies your belief in that it's possible, because you've seen it done. You've watched someone else do it. You're being taught or coached by someone who's been where you're looking to go. So in those moments where there is doubt, in those moments where there's uncertainty, in those moments where you're not sure, you're able to lean on the fact that someone else has done it. They've achieved it and they won. So I know that there's a lot of conversation about being persistent and being determined and don't quit, don't give up, practice, practice, practice. I maintain that practice does not make perfect. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Whatever you practice becomes permanent. So what if you're practicing the wrong thing? What if you're practicing a method that will not work? What if you're practicing the use of a vehicle that is not capable of getting you to the destination that you desire? For example, you live in Los Angeles. You want to go visit the beautiful island of Oahu. Well, and you love riding your bike. You are persistent, you are determined, you will give everything you can and that you must in order to ride your bike from Los Angeles to Hawaii. You're not going to make it, regardless of how much you love your bike, no matter how hard you pedal, no matter how confident you are, no matter how much work you put into it. That vehicle, the bicycle, will not support you in getting to that destination. And that's the reason why in the programs that I offer, from Move the Room to Money in Your Mind to the Alchemy Circle, it's all about providing individuals who are serious. Caveat, right? It's all about providing individuals who are serious with the vehicles necessary to condition your thinking for the journey ahead. I don't promise, pie in the sky. I don't promise it's going to be all gravy. It's going to be all easy. Because what I know and believe is that those who are really serious about taking on a life of success and fulfillment, they know that part of that comes with challenge. They don't back down from the challenge. They embrace it, recognizing that it's not about the end goal as much as it is about who you become in the process. And so a lot of times we hear, like the previous episode, are you narcissistic or altruistic? The hope is that you're both, right? Both. Go back and listen to that episode. Right? One of the reasons that I like to take things that are commonly accepted as it's just what is because a lot of times there's not actual truth to it. Right? And sometimes you get these pop psychology like terms that everybody wants to start using. And people then will take on the label. Well, the reality is if you take on the label, then you got to take on the limits that come with the label. Same with trial and error, particularly for those who are just getting started in business, sales, entrepreneurship, and so forth. It's like, well, just trial. It's all just trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. There are elements of truth to that, but much more profound is modeling. Modeling is more efficient, saves more money, has you move faster, gives you a competitive advantage, and sets you up for success much, much better than, say, trial and error does. I hope that helps. If it does, don't keep it a secret. Let someone know that this podcast does exist by sharing it with them. Send it out to them, share the link and so forth. Let them know that it exists if you believe that it will help them. And if you have not yet joined my email list, I would like for you to do so. I'd like for you to do so today. Go to courtlandwarren.com/opt-in, OPTIN, courtlandwarren.com/opt-in. Join the mailing list. That way I can email you, reach you without being reliant on platforms. Okay, so that helps us grow, and we appreciate you. Thanks a lot. We'll see you for the next episode.